Hey, welcome. You are listening to a special edition of the Kingdom Mentors Academy, Redeem Your Voice Camp. And we've invited you along because I think this is going to be really powerful because it's a subject I have not touched on. And it's called Keys to Defeat Depression. And I have a special guest. We're in the midst of this course called The True Awakening. And what I mean by that is I believe there's a time when it's happening now, but we must be awakened on the inside to be part of the true awakening to help those on the outside. Sometimes we've got to get our act together to be able to use our voice, to be able to speak, to be able to move in those areas that God's called us in our kingdom assignment. Isn't that exciting? Our kingdom assignment. And I think sometimes it's so easy to get tripped up and think, fried, tried, and crucified. I'm over it. There's no hope for me. You don't know my case, Teresa. No hope for me. I think there is great hope for you. Testimony in Hebrew means do it again, God. So without further ado, will you help me welcome my guest, Biff Hitchens. Hey, Biff.
How you doing?
I can say this. He's live, figuratively, and literally. He's just in that background right over there.
Another room.
Biff is a musician. He's a counselor. He's also a longtime member of the Kingdom Mentor Academy, upper level. And that's one thing I'll tell you, you get in the upper level, a lot of times we just open our doors to you and say, hey, come on, let's have some time together. But Biff is also just truly a great friend. If you want to know more about the upper level, see the link down below, kingsmedia.com/blueprint. I'll get you through one door to get a free identity blueprint. Just wanted to say that. So Biff, it's so awesome to have you here. Tell our audience a little bit more about you, brother.
Okay, I was born and raised in New Orleans. I was raised Catholic as far as my faith goes. Kind of was more Catholic in name only. We go to church every Sunday, and I was raised to pray. Never really had that connection with God, and so I was a musician from a young age, from age 8, and started on drums in the school band at 8 years old, and so I kind of lived that. Once I went to LSU for a while and kind of got into this cover band life and the music life. And so I was really pursuing that full time, but I was very far from God. I had history with addiction, things like that. And so then in 2009, I had this moment where God just reached into my life. I'll never forget it. He just shined this big, bright light. I was at a kind of a New Year's Eve, decadent-ish New Year's Eve party. It wasn't drugs and all that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden everything stood still. No one else saw it. I just saw this bright light just blind down, and I felt this voice say, "You don't belong here." And really, that was back in 11, now almost 12 years ago. And so ever since then, it's been this journey of just trying to just connect with God in just different ways. So it took a lot of different detours. I mean, I was New Age for a bit. I didn't know. I just went back to Catholicism, just really trying to figure out where God is. But they say if you seek, you will find. You seek him, you'll find him, and he leads you to truth, and truth is Jesus Christ. So got in a relationship with him. So
tell us, not to open up wounds, but tell us a little bit of the journey where you really were struggling with depression. You were saved, so it's not like you lost your salvation, but to give us a little bit of a story, a background of how you've walked through that, and even continuing to walk through that, and how God has met you on each level.
Right. So I was shortly after that moment with God. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and that's what everyone tried to write off that experience with him as just a manic episode or something like that. But that's when I started really wrestling with the mental health aspect. But really, to me, that's all tied together. I mean, I work in the medical field and mental health, but early on, the depression was so bad, it would take months at a time for me to even, it was just too hard to even bathe or really had clinical, just major depression along with the other bipolar side of things. So that started back in 2009 and was intermittent in those early years quite often. So I had many large bouts with it,
We talk a lot in the Mentor Academy. I call it the FRP process, where you focus and get it out of the hiding and focus on something that doesn't line up with peace, hope, righteousness.
Right.
Don't hide. And then bring it into the reality. You got to face it. God gave us our emotions. even get curious about it, as Alice Miller says in her book. And really, so you got to hear, but not just leave it here. But then the P is bringing the presence of God. Have
Right.
you, in your own way, gone through that process? That's very
Definitely.
similar, because everyone has their own way. But I would be curious, what were some of the keys as you realize you're in this depth of depression?
Right.
And I mean, you've experienced it all, Biff.
Yeah.
Any keys that you could give?
Yeah. I mean, for me, and it's just some techniques I've learned over the years of after, God delivered me from it at some point through the help of just, at some point it just broke. And I believe that was his grace because some people can stay depressed indefinitely. But really for me, it's like I became aware of that early, those fiery darts you talk about in scripture. I believe the enemy just starts hitting you with these darts. And then all of a sudden, if you start embracing those things like, yeah, I am no good, or yeah, I don't have that car I want, or yeah, my friends are doing better than me. And all of a sudden it comes in like a flood and it just turns into this all of a sudden you're crying about something that happened when you were in seventh grade. And you don't even know why. It's like it turns into this kind of slippery slope that I find the enemy just feeds on that negative mindset and just really, and that's where I just replace. I really try and catch those things early and just really just nip that in the bud. So you can just say, I'm not going to think on that. I'm not going to dwell on that. I go to my word. I go to, talk with a friend, a believer, or a friend, just a good friend, just get your mind off of it and really just invite in the Holy Spirit and that presence of Jesus. Just to, like, I'm gonna focus on you. I'm gonna worship through this,
So
and
you're talking
He's
about
there. Yeah,
triggers. You're talking actually about triggers. We talk a lot about that. So when
yeah,
you're triggered, I like when the different things you do. Sometimes we're triggered and we just need to offload the wound on someone who's reliable and a
right.
counselor. But let's say you don't have any contact with someone. What is a way that you fight those triggers?
I mean, it's really just pay attention to your thought life and be aware of those thoughts that are not holy and pure and all those things, and realize those might not be your thoughts. I think that was one of the biggest revelations I had a few years ago, where I was aware of these thoughts. I'm like, I don't believe that about myself or somebody else. Why am I thinking this? And then you notice your thought life, even, it's just this kind of battle between, my thoughts and then these negative thoughts. And I've heard so many different people tell me they think these things. It's like, why am I thinking this? And, it's just, we're just aware of the enemy's tactics in that. And for me, it's like I immediately just reject those thoughts and don't empower them. A friend of ours, Bill Johnson, talks about when you empower the lie, you give it the authority to then, um, impact your mood, your spirit, and everything. And you give that grip to, whether it be a spirit or just, your own
Yeah,
thoughts.
that's
Yeah.
good. Hey, on a technical spot, your ears are cracking. Should we try it without your
Uh,
AirPods?
okay.
Because I want to make this podcast. You're cracking. I think it was your AirPods. So
That's
I've
okay.
noticed we've talked about this morning about the voice of God and really coming to understand the voice of God, to be able to even hear him as you go through this process. How have you grown in hearing the voice of God?
Really, I've grown. I mean, I operated under, to me, what was confusion for many years. I felt like I thought I knew what God sounded like, and it was really, the enemy masquerading as God, trying to really keep me confused. And I really have hit within this last year a season of God just really pulling back a little bit, not speaking as much, but making me aware of how much what I call noise was going on. And that's when, like, even outside of just when you hear that still small voice, just those different thoughts that are not yours, that are not of God, and just how much we get bombarded with these things, we're not even aware of it. So God has really just shown me different emotions through when I'm worshiping or just dwelling on him. I'll feel waves of love, I'll tear
Yeah,
up, things like, and I know exactly where that's coming from. So that's
that's
not,
good. So
that, and yeah.
obviously your music plays a big role in fighting the triggers. A little bit how you use music to help with the trigger process.
Yeah, I use music to kind of cope and process the emotions I was dealing with. I felt that for me, it's like I would write songs to kind of express my pain and suffering, but also to share how God was present in those times, and just to give peace to my spirit and make music with Him. For many years, I made music just for myself, but to make music not for the world but for him, and get to use my gift with him. And it just felt some overwhelming presence when I was writing these songs, and it's just something I love to do, and I continue to do forever. It's what I'll do in eternity with him, is just worship him and make music for him, so I use it as a way to process those negative emotions.
Tell them a little bit about your latest music project, in the sense that here you are using it, and now God's releasing your voice in a project.
Yeah, you're kind of cutting out.
Sorry, so are you. So this is not a good line. Tell them about how you have used this to the point of your latest release. I would love for people to really get a touch of where you've been with your music.
Yeah, this release, it's an EP I released in January, and really it's not a lot of songs, but it's a selection of songs I wrote over the past 12 years, chronicling different moments and different times along my journey. And the one that seems to be the most received is the one called Through the Pain, which was birthed out of a really traumatic experience in 2018. Where I was just wrestling with the enemy, just being seeing dark spirits, and just really just tough breakdown. And I just then wrote that song with tears in my eyes and the presence in the room, and I couldn't record that again and have it sound the same. And so all of these songs come out of some kind of experience of either negative, but also the redemptive quality of God, which is to that song.
So that's got to give anyone hope that this isn't how your life is defined,
right,
by your struggles with depression, your struggles with anxiety, that God gives us the beautiful gift of process to get to the other side. Process, I always believe, is about your relationship with God, Biff. Give us some of your process. Let's hear how God has processed you as you've allowed yourself to submit to him.
One big thing is that something that I would think, especially when I would, I was saved, trying to work a relationship with God, but then I would, sin, do things I shouldn't do, things like that, and I would just be overwhelmed with shame, like, oh, God's just pissed at me, he hates me, he doesn't love me, and I've heard a preacher say this, and I fully believe it's true, that we have to remember that God, the same God that's up there with you on the mountain and things are great, it's the same God that's at the bottom when you're, and he loved you the same amount the whole time, and he also foreknew that you would do these acts, and he still chose to accept you as his child. So, not dwelling on shame, and I feel like a lot of us deal with that's a trigger for depression and anxiety and things. That shame and guilt, whether it be a life circumstance or just our own conscience convicting us of sin. I feel like there's definitely a difference between conviction and shame from the enemy. And
break it down, brother. What's the difference between the shame, the conviction, or the condemnation?
Well, because the condemnation and shame is going to speak lies about who you are, and it's going to say that you're no good, you're this. And like conviction is coming from a place of love, where it's correction. Like I forget what scripture it is where he talks like he will chasten he chastens the one he loves, and so for me, like the difference, you can just, when you're sitting there dwelling and dwelling and dwelling, and if you've repented and you need to move on at that point. And so sometimes I would repent, and then all of a sudden I would still be dwelling about this, that, and the other. And God hit me one day. He's like, I forgot about that. I'm moved on. I'm not thinking about that anymore. It's like, why are you thinking about that? I'm like, you're right. It's like, all right, let's move forward. And because if you're dwelling in that, and that's a part to me of that mindset that can lead itself to depression and anxiety and those negative thought trains, because it's not a healthy thing to dwell on, and it just leads to unrest.
Do you deal with a lot of kids that are struggling in your counseling ministry business? How do you walk through, let's say there's a parent and they know their child's struggling with depression and they don't know what to do about it. How would you, one, speak to the child, and two, speak to that parent?
Well, for me, I work at a state agency, which I'm not able to fully share what I really believe, is going on with, the interconnectedness between, the physical and the spiritual. But what I do is I just speak biblical truth to both of them. I say, because I work with children who've had their first break of schizophrenia. And it's a very, some of them I believe have the seer anointing, and the enemy's just trying to overwhelm them to where they don't want to deal with that,
Wow.
things like that. But I can't share that in a state counseling session. So what I do is I explain to them, like, well, how to not be afraid of the things, and just all the things we know as believers to use as tools to combat, the spiritual, negativity that can surround us. I just give them those keys, and the truth word. The word is truth, and truth.
Right.
I mean, that works regardless of whether
Yeah.
you're
Whether you're saying Jesus says, yeah, the
right. That's
kingdom.
what they.
Yeah.
It's a blueprint for how do you.
What about parents? I know you probably don't talk to parents, but if there's a parent watching,
Yeah.
what are some little things they can do to be a little more attentive and involved in this process with their child?
I would kind of use a doctor had told my mom a long time ago, because my mom didn't really. I love my mom, but she didn't really understand the depression at first. She saw it as laziness, things like that, and I get it. She was frustrated. She just wanted to see me better. I don't think it came from a place of malintent or anything. But the doctor is saying gentle nudging, and then also just praying over them, declaring that it's like, I'm not going to have this spirit of depression wreck my child, my family.
Good.
Just keep declaring over them. I know something I've learned from you guys to start doing is declarations, and I don't do it enough. I need to do it more. And just speaking that over that, oppression, but really just trying not to get frustrated with them, because they're really suffering in a way that no one can see, and just, they're in a trap of just this, this weight. It just feels like a blanket.
It is with you, bro.
Right.
It ended with you, brother. That's Dave in the background.
Yeah.
So you get to break that off, from your family. What let me talk about getting help and declarations. I know Dave and I are real big about declarations, and God gave me a word. I don't know if you're familiar, for the beginning of this year, based on Hebrews 11, verse 11, Biff. And the idea was Sarah's faith embraced the miracle working power of God, even though, and the even though is stuff we all can fight with. The even though is the flesh, even though she was barren and past the age of childbearing, even though you're struggling and you're trying to move forward with your uh, depression, or you want to get out of that pit. But I really believe it's a rest to run. And someone says, what rest? You can rest and go forward in your healing from that place of victory. Jesus once and for all died, and for us once and for all finished. There was a finished work of the cross, and we get to rest in that. And then what else did Sarah do? It says, for the authority of her faith rest in the promises of God, and she tapped into his faithfulness. So she's resting, and she's resting in miracle powers of God. She's resting in the promises, and then she runs by tapping into his faithfulness. We call tapping into his faithfulness declaration. So talk again, Biff, how important declarations are in this journey, and how someone can have hope. Let's say someone's like, okay, I'm kind of getting what Biff's saying, but man, I feel when I'm depressed, I don't want to do anything. But yet, what are some steps they can rise up to and get to that place of declarations?
I fully believe it. They talk about it in James, I believe, where life and death is in the power of the tongue. And I don't think and David really helped me with this in one of my upper level meetings, where he just said, stop speaking that over yourself. Don't say you have that. Don't say that, you're empowering the enemy by saying these things over yourself. Like, you gotta work on your tongue. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And so you're declaring these things over your identity that's not true. When AA, I hate that when they'll raise their hand, they say, hey, I'm so and so and I'm an addict, and you're just drilling into yourself your identity is something that's not true. You're not an addict. You're Brian, you're a loving father, you're this, you're that. You have so many other qualities besides your junk, and don't identify yourself with that. So really just speaking over in your prayer time, just in your worship time, just declarations every day, write them down. I'll journaling and just then read what you journal, and just, there's something about the spoken word, because God speaks things into existence. And Jesus is the word. And I think on other levels we can never understand is how that, we're in his image. And I don't know where I'm going, but I just know that there's something deeper to the spoken word than we can realize, you know.
I think that's so powerful for anyone, whether you're struggling with depression or just the fear of just going through, and from 2020 to 2021. It's so easy to just start freaking out, but I don't think God freaks out. I think he invites us, Biff, to have that more intimate relationship with him and to really deal with things. I know I can say that in my past, I've had oppression that's wanted to turn into depression. And my safe place is when I get up in the morning and nestle under my blanket with my cup of coffee and with the word open. And sometimes just with a song, The Voice of God by Dante Bowen. Man, that just wrecks me. So how do you go through that process of in the word off to work? Because, in the word off to work, how does that process work for you? And what do you see the benefit as you've gaining victory over your depression?
I feel like for me, when my prayer life suffers, that's when other things start to creep in that you don't want, because you start getting going like God's with you, you're good, you've been praying every day. All of a sudden, you start to coast, and it almost feels like it's human nature, or at least it's my nature. I'm not everybody does that, but I know when my prayer life suffers, and for me, I'm such a musical person that I really spend more time in worship than in the Word, and something I try and balance. I'm not a big reader, but I live in the Psalms and things, but I just feel that for me, when that prayer time and alone time is not happening, for me, that's when things start to suffer. So for me, having either in the beginning or end of the day, everyone's different, but just having that dedicated time, to be with him is so important each day, because he wants to be in the little moments. I used to think real quick this point that I used to separate my prayer time from my work time. And I
Wow.
would be like, all right, prayer's over. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go get my work hat on. But God's involved in everything. He's involved in,
Amen.
every moment of your day. And like, so even if I do miss my prayer time in the morning, I'm thinking to him throughout the
Yeah.
day, bringing stuff to him, and or I'll just do, just even little things here and there in between clients or something, or I'll ask for a word from him for someone, or what do you see in this person's heart, Father, things like that. So, even throughout our day, we shouldn't fragment our,
Yeah.
relationship with him. It should be all the time.
I think that's key. And I think so often we get into the performance. That's why I'm so
Right.
into the rest, because you are a mighty warrior. When whether you're in the word or you walk off to work, you are his much love, and you are open heaven wherever you go. You get to change atmospheres because of the glory, and just being aware of that. Biff, I remember there was a season in my life. There was a season where I spent massive amounts of time in the Word. And then there was this season where I was on the radio station. I had to get up real early to go to work. I was on the morning show. And I remember just talking to God about it. And he said, Teresa, I can give you 5-10 minutes. Take those, because I can multiply them. There'll be seasons in your life. And I'll never forget those 5 or 10 minutes set me off, not in a striving way, but set me off in a rest way for the rest of the work day and then taking care of kids, because I heard his voice and he said, easy, you just 5 or 10 minutes right now because of your schedule. And then as I went through seasons and rhythms of life, God gives me more time, or sometimes it's busy. I think people need to be freed up. That this is about a relationship, not an agenda, not okay, check off this reading and this reading. He inviting you into the deepest, ugliest places, and he wants to heal you and live there, because he is living in there. It's as it says Galatians 2:20, I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life I live in the flesh, the flesh that freaks out, I live by faith, like Sarah, of the Son of God, who loved himself and gave himself for me. So in the capsule of that one verse, Biff, we get to walk out saying, hey, no, it's Christ in me, the hope of glory. I'm going to be some hope today. Do you find that as you align yourself, that it affects even the keys of walking in victory over of your depression? Or do we say, okay, I may struggle with this at times, but I'm not going to be defined by this. I'm going to go back over here, Christ in me, the hope of glory.
Well, we're all going to have bad days. And I think for people to assume that, because you're a believer, you're never going to have a bad day is a myth that I think was told to a lot of people. It's like, oh, life's going to be great, and really we're going to have trials. But really, as Dave reminded me yesterday, we're sitting around talking, Christ is strongest during those trials. So he's perfecting that weakness. And so for me, it's like, just take the bad day and just remember that it's not forever. For one, this too shall pass. And also just rest and make sure you're doing, I mean, I'm not saying just you have to have a checklist of your day, but make sure you're giving that intentional time to God. Don't just, as you're depressed, or a lot of times I find what will happen is, because of my past traumas, the enemy in more recent days tries to bring up, well, God wasn't there for you. He would abandon you, things like that, all these lies. And like, and once again, it's like, if I start thinking like, oh, well, maybe he wasn't there, all I have to do is empower that. And then all of a sudden that little thought train starts getting going. And for me, it's just really, you got to nip these things early. But, I think alone time with the Lord and worship in the Word is the most powerful thing. It's any behavioral health, mental disorder to me,
I think you said something really crucial as far as dealing with whether it's depression, anxiety, or anything, is that the ability to not empower the lie. And that's so where our, mental being renewing our mind. But so often, I know we can get into this where we get in agreement with that lie. Next thing you know, we're pouring the hot tea and going to have tea with that agreement and mull over it. And I think I was talking to you in a upper level meeting because I was preparing. And I remember I went around the house saying, cancel the assignment of the enemy, cancel that lie. And then I was like, God's like, well, okay, you can cancel it, but you don't just walk around canceling it. Why don't you put something in there? I'm like, okay, I'm going to dig the root out of that lie.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it in the light. What's revealed in light is covered by the blood. So I'm doing my own little FRP here. See, I'm focusing on this. This is terrible. I'm going to bring the reality, but I don't have. I can feel it, but I can bring in the presence, which are the promises of God, and nip it in the bud. And then I start getting in agreement with heaven, because ultimately it doesn't matter what we're facing. We are not labeled by what we're facing. We're labeled as a much loved child of God. And he gives us the keys. He gives us the word. He gives us promises that we get to rest in. How have you struggled with when I say rest? Have you struggled like, what does she mean? Or have you gotten the comprehension of that? Because I know it's so easy to get into striving when you're trying to get over something, but how have you been able to just kind of unpack that rest word for yourself?
Yeah, that's something I've really started to appreciate. And I mean, I heard you saying it, but for me, I was always in that kind of, you had to do this. Like, I mean, I feel like maybe that's from my religious upbringing, where it's like you had to say this many Hail Marys and this, that, and the other in order to get saved, do your penance and stuff. So it came from a very legalist mindset where you had to do this, such a thing. And I I would beat myself up if I didn't read scripture that morning or this, that, or the other. So I was kind of having these own self-imposed kind of negative outlooks on things. So for me, like, resting really comes from that peace of Christ. I think like that rest, because once you align, like you said, align spiritually, like with heaven, and like you're processing these tough emotions, which to me, I think it's okay to process, like grief and things like that. Like, everything's not a light switch that you just pray, snap, and get over. Like, some things are real things that need to be processed, but you don't stay there, and you bring them, and like you were saying, Teresa, where like you bring heaven to join you in that space, and then you can move forward through these things, so you can have healing. And not everything's overnight, but
right.
I definitely agree with, you really have to just focus on Jesus in those times. You really do.
I've been going through, some things personally, and I know that where I have to, and I'm being reminded, is that age-old word of forgiveness, forgiving others, forgiving yourself. That so often that act of forgiveness and not walking in offense can really just be the one key that really unlocks you on the inside, because the more we harbor things, it affects us physically. No, you can say, yeah, we're soul, mind, will, and emotions. I know if my will or my emotions are out of whack, then it affects me physically, even depressed. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and Dave's mom is in her final minutes or days, and I remember we went up to see her yesterday, and I felt the trauma the whole way home. And I just like the way I dealt with it was probably not the best way, but I just checked out and took a nap, you know, I mean, and I know that, but the more I'm understanding, wait a minute, that wasn't a forgiving issue. Maybe it was, but what do I need? I'm not trying to go through step by step, but I'm really trying to come into the light. I'm really trying to get in agreement with my thoughts. I'm really trying to ask, if anything, just ask Jesus, help me, Lord. That's what I want you to do right now. I want you to look in the camera, Beth. Someone's listening live or recorded, and they've got a bear on their back, and it's depression. And no matter, one minute they shake it off, the next minute it grabs on. Would you say something or even pray something? Just look right into that camera.
Definitely. Heavenly Father, I'm going to close my eyes for a second, but Heavenly Father, I just thank you for whoever's watching right now. I thank you for just your patience with us, for your love for us, and just for your ability to meet us wherever we are, no matter if we're on the mountain or in the valley, and that you're even stronger in that valley. And I just pray, Father, that for anyone going through depression or anxiety or shame or guilt, any of those negative just lies of the enemy that just engulfed their mindset of just it's not kingdom. And I just pray just to break that in Jesus' name. I can command that spirit of depression be removed from that person's mind, spirit, body, just everything, that any physical ailments they're having be broken, any shame from past hurts, relationships just be broken in Jesus' name. And I just thank you, Father, for that deliverance. I thank you for your constant presence in our lives and your patience. And just remember, whoever's out there, just remember that the blood of Jesus is it. That's the finished work of the cross. And so I just pray that over you in Jesus' name.
And I just add on top of that prayer of just that you would understand that your voice is powerful and you don't have to be sidelined by depression or anxiety or just fear, that you can rise up in the power of Jesus Christ and rest in his promises and then start making declarations. But you can come from that place of rest. I just feel like someone, Biff, needs to know that they are enough, that they have a voice. And look at Biff, he's rising up from steps from defeating depression. He's a counselor. He touches kids every single day. He has an album out, and he gets to release that. Think about what you're struggling with. That might be your book. That might be your course online. That might be the way you handle your kids, because you're coming into agreement with heaven and not the enemy. So I just encourage you to take those steps. And Biff, you are a member of the Kingdom Mentor Academy. How does it help to have kingdom people to speak life into you? How is that help?
Oh, I mean, the different videos on hearing God's voice, processing trauma. I mean, I definitely had some trauma over the years, and really just kind of, Teresa breaks down step by step in different processes, and just really having connection with them. I mean, if you can do the upper level, I highly recommend it. Her and her husband just really speak into you, and I'm partial because I knew them, previous to joining, but really that was planted seeds that I'm now seeing the fruit and growth of, because I think I joined 2 years ago, and where I was even a year ago compared to now is just night and day. I said 180 and Dave said 360, full circle. And so it really is just to have believers. I mean, even if it is, because some people don't have people in their immediate family or, any, I don't know, they're just different people that they might be, secluded or might not have a church they connect with. So just having even just that digital friends group, just to be accountable, just to share, and a safe place to kind of process, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, people to pray for you, declare over you. I think it's crucial for us to have those, tribes or circles around us. And I don't think we can do this alone. I know I can't. I have lots of support locally in my church, with my friends that have been there through the thick and thin, and, just people God's put in my life to help me through this. So I definitely believe getting connected in this community will definitely benefit you just in many different ways, especially with your walk with Christ.
Thank you, Biff. That's cool. Appreciate that. And what's something, Biff, what's neat about the upper level is you either are friends or you become really dear friends. And talking about the upper level, you can check that out and find out more. The entry point is just a free blueprint call. You can go to ikingsmedia.com/blueprint. And what I do is just open the door and say, hello, have a cup of coffee with you, ask you a few questions, and really just love on you and share some principles of the rest to run and find out what your dreams are. So, and it's so cool because, see, I look at Biff. We love it when he comes visit. It's like we get to catch up, and we have a couple others that they come on over and we just sup and have kingdom. We have family. And I don't think it's about the numbers as much, Biff, as the right connections, the ones that God has ordained. And I can think about just opening up a blueprint call and connecting with a few of them. Next thing you know, they're like your best friends. And so it's neat that you're a part of that inner circle, part of that family. So I really appreciate you and appreciate your comments. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, hey, Marilyn Britt, saying hello to some people that are part of our home church group and definitely friends. And I would like to end with a prayer, a little personal. Dave's family is experiencing the last minutes of their mom, Cheryl Croft. So I'll lift up that family, our family. She was in ICU and on a ventilator, and it's now just the last final minutes. So I appreciate your prayers. That's what you are, family, for that. And we trust God. And we trust God that legacy will be lived behind. So thank you so much for joining us. And just know this is part of the Kingdom Mentor Academy. We're sharing a live Redeem Your Voice camp. If you want to know more about that, you also can go to ikingsmedia.com/blueprint. And it's such an honor to open it up and just talk life and be real. So Biff, thank you so much, brother.
No problem. Glad to do it.
It's so awesome to just see. And for some reason, I can remember just certain things. The video clicked on and boom, there was a word, or Dave was blasting with his, And so I just want to tell you, thank you publicly that you're such a much loved son, turning into a much loved father and a father in the kingdom of God. So brother, I appreciate you. And I thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And thank y'all for everything. Dear Kingdom friends, what do you call it? Kingdom connections or something?
Yes, Kingdom. How can they go on Spotify and find your album and listen?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. But it's my artist name is Biff, BIFFABBA. So Biff Abba.
I'll put that in there, Biff Abba.
Yeah, if you type that in any streaming site, no one else has that name. So I put that together, and so biffabba.herenow.com. You can it has links to all the different streaming sites where you can get that, or just stream the album for free. So
that's awesome.
On all the streaming sites for sure.
Elva, can we bring you on and say hello just as we end? Here's Elva.
Hi, everybody.
Upper level mentorees, and we got Marilyn Britt. Hey, Marilyn. So just our way of saying we're having a cup of coffee with y'all, and we'd love to share our family with you. So thank you so much. And you know what? I always say this because it's so real. I'll talk to you in the next video. God bless you all.